Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I am excited to kind of dive into the crazy world that we're all living in and helping people unpack, and navigate these energies.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack right now. And you've been putting out some incredible content as always. And, one of the things that we wanted to open up and start with is just to kind of recap. We're in December. 2021 has had a very interesting, palpable energy to it, probably for many of us, different in a lot of ways than from 2020, and love to get your perspective on the energy of this year, some of the key themes that you've been finding.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're so right. I mean, 2021 has been so incredibly different than 2020. I think 2020 was a year where everyone was forced to stop what they were doing, assess, their own narrative, and just kind of be in this weird liminal kind of realm, back and forth. 2021 is very different, and I would say even more challenging in so many ways than 2020, in the way that a lot of people are trying to get back into their old reality. So what we're finding in 2021, or what I found and observed from myself, from others, is there's been this really huge dichotomy split within this reality. 2021 has been the essence of polarity, and we're all experiencing that. No matter what level you are at in your own spiritual awakening, you're going to be seeing two very different sides. And we've really kind of been forced to once again go within, but then also struggle to navigate and understand the external world as well. And seeing the polarity, seeing the projection, seeing the reflections inside and outside has been really, really difficult for a lot of people to navigate. So, I mean, the essence of shadow work has been 2021. So we've had some really extreme high highs at an individual level of like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, I'm hopping into this new frequency. Life is great. And then we've just kind of plummeted to the lowest of low that we can experience, all in the matter of this 1 year. So that's kind of what I've been observing at that individual level. And then, of course, at that kind of global collective level, the polarity is super rife. The fear is super rife. All of those 3D people just kind of want to go back to normal, without taking the responsibility of, wow, like I can create my new reality however I want to create it. And that's the tipping point. That's where we get into a higher vibration, is recognizing that you are in full control of your own reality, and then making those choices to shift those things. So yeah, I mean, just a lot of change, a lot of polarity in 2021, and I believe 2022 might get a little bit worse actually than 2021, which is definitely not what everyone wants to hear, but that's kind of what I'm seeing in some of these future forecasts.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you say, from your vantage point, that those who are really kind of choosing to hunker down in 3D, really trying to, swim against the the flow, so to speak, of what's taking place? How do you see that playing out for them? Is there anything like in particular that's been shown to you, like moving through this massive window of big energy of the next month, and then and not really tapering off anytime soon into 2022? What can be anticipated? Because I know a lot of people that are gathered here are in the higher realms of dimensional existence most of the time, yet a lot of us also have family members and relatives and things that are still choosing this this different experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely think of a few people who are stuck. So I'm actually pretty candid, especially with my dad, who's an incredible human and definitely helped me along my spiritual journey. But I call him a boomer man. He's just so stuck and so stubborn and so not willing to dive in and be vulnerable and get into those emotional places. So I tell him all the time, I'm like, have you had your ego death yet? Like, come on, I'm waiting, the world's waiting. And this is kind of where I see it going. This is where I really feel like, and it's not a generational thing. I don't want to, be ageist or whatever. That's just my dad. But, I really feel like that ego death sentiment is where these people need to go at an individual level. And what's really fascinating, because I kind of try and take a look at things from all angles, is that the ego death from an individual can potentially occur from the death or the collapsing of a system at a collective level. So say, for example, huge, massive disclosure about religion or the Pope or the president or, or a celebrity that you super love and you look up to, and all of a sudden they're not the reality that you thought that they were. That collapse could potentially, sink into your own individual collapse, which could be a very positive thing, because if that's what you identify with, or for example, it could be very individual. It could be, I'm a doctor and my whole life I've had everyone call me doctor, and that label gives me a sense of identity or ego or self-esteem or what have you. All of a sudden that title is ripped away from you for whatever reason, and you have an ego death or a collapse of identity that way. So the only thing that I believe these people need to experience and go through is change. As long as you are willing to change, no matter what that may be, you're willing to move into a higher frequency. That's all it requires, is just a willingness to change. And I know a couple of people who are for sure unwilling to do that. As simple as it may sound, it can also be so complex because they have indoctrinated and entangled their identity with their environment and their surroundings. And they are so resistant to making that change. And that's what I think that we're going to see in 2022. I don't see it happening for the majority of people in, say, December, in this next month. But I do think that 2022, there's going to be a wall that people are going to hit, and they're going to have to look within in how to get around that wall, because nothing in this physical reality can help us with a spiritual shifting matter such as what we're being presented with right now.
Yeah, I absolutely love that you said go into the emotion, because I feel like that's so what's being called for right now. And, for all of us, wherever we're at in our spiritual journeys, it's like, if there is a thread of something that needs to be healed or that needs to be looked at, it will come up and surface during this time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of, I don't know if I'm jumping too far forward in this, but one of the things that we're excited about you diving into perhaps is talking a little bit about psychic attacks. And the reason why I feel like this is a perfect lead into that is because, all day long as, in session and in different communities of connection, we're witnessing people really having this ramp up, right? And of course, we know the greatest portal for anything of this nature is fear. And just as you're expressing, like that fear of change, the fear of letting go, the fear of experiencing something beyond a finite structure of, possibly your entire existence. So can you touch a little bit on this? Because I know that many listening right now would benefit greatly from your techniques and tools and offerings in that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's funny. I feel like every time I personally go through some sort of crazy attack, I'm always like, this will be the last time. I'm getting too strong for this shit. And it just happens again. And what's really beautiful is that when it happens again, I've had enough time in between to heal. So like personally, I have been like psychically attacked or targeted, whatever you want to call it, since a very young age. And I've had to navigate all of that on my own. So now it's really beautiful to have a community of other people who can share that validation and who also understand that. Now, what's really interesting about psychic attacks is when we experience certain aspects of this reality in a low vibrational frequency, we usually just pass it off like, oh, that was like a really like weird dream, or like, oh, like that random stranger on the street was really like mean to me, or what have you, or all of a sudden my boyfriend gets abusive when he drinks or like whatever. And then you start to kind of open up to the world beyond this world, and you start to see, oh, that actually wasn't that person at all. That was something coming through that person. Oh, these aren't my thoughts to randomly take this knife on the table and like do something awful with it. That's an intrusive thought. And that's actually me just tapping into these other layers. So I want to just mention first kind of like why we get attacked when we awaken, and then what those attacks could potentially look like, because I think that's going to be very validating. And then how do you navigate all those potential attacks? So it's a lot, but I think it's a really key concept, especially right now. So basically, if you think about the third dimensional frequency layer, and dimensions are just energy densities, 3D layers, the physical reality, 4D layer above that is kind of that weird liminal conspiracy. I heard someone just the other day call it shamanic and Masonic, like at the same time. I'm like, ooh, that resonates. And then the fifth dimension is, woo, I can see dark and light simultaneously. It's the quantum layer of seeing both sides. So 4D is like kind of where Bigfoot and fairies exist, but also where shape-shifting reptilians and entities exist as well. As we raise our vibration, we're questioning this physical reality. We're wondering what more lies beyond. We're raising that vibration. We're raising our awareness, and we actually step into this 4D realm. And this is where we become very open, energetically, psychically. We're opening our third eye. And this is where we also become a target because of that innocence, because of that naivety. We're very clearly kind of targeted as light workers or starseeds. And what happens, what I found anyways, through those attacks, it will lower your vibration once again, maybe freak you out about this world, and you'll dip back into 3D. So a lot of people that I know who awaken, they hit 4D and then they come back down, or they get stuck in that kind of conspiracy agenda, reptilian world, and they fight it for so long that they never actually see beyond that. And I do have hope that everyone eventually gets beyond that. But it's just, that's kind of why we get targeted or attacked during our awakening, is just because that's actually a step that we need to go through to get to 5D. But that's not the end of the road. And when I was getting attacked way back in the day, I thought that oh my goodness, this is the whole spiritual world, because I couldn't get past it. So then what different attacks look like? So there's actually like a physical psychic attack that happens. And this is basically like what you would call a possession. Most of the time, entities, parasites, reptilians, whatever you want to call them, they can't actually get to you through you, typically because our vibration is just too strong. Even if you're naive, you're usually pretty pure as a star seed or just a cosmic being. So they just can't possibly come through you. They can, however, come through lower vibrational people who exist around you. Sometimes that is just like a homeless man on the street who may be taking substances. Maybe that is a partner or a boyfriend, but drugs and alcohol are definitely factors that lower one's vibration and allows entities to come through. So that'll happen when a possession happens or an entity does get attached to someone else. It'll be the craziest thing you'll ever experience, like the craziest abuse. It's like that person makes their whole entire identity, their reality about you, about either taking you down or sucking you in. It's just next level insane. But it's really beautiful to be able to see it from a different perspective, to say, oh, well, it wasn't that person, it was something coming through that person. And even at the other end, that person's like, whoa, like, I don't know what just happened, but like, I guess I'm sorry, like that wasn't me, and there's that feeling too. So that happens. Also intrusive thoughts, like I mentioned, when we open our third eye, when we naturally raise our vibration, once again, we become targets, and we might not know it. We're putting away the dishes, and all of a sudden, this crazy intrusive thought comes in, like something super dark and twisted. Like I used to notice it all the time when like I was driving on the road. Oh, just drive off this bridge. I'm like, I don't want to drive off a bridge. Like, why is this thought coming in? Realizing that wasn't my own at all. So intrusive thoughts are huge. And then the third kind of attack that's really common is psychic attacks during sleep. Once again, we're kind of in a place where we're very vulnerable. We don't really have that consciousness or that focus on one dimension or another, just kind of floating. So they can set up crazy nightmares, crazy dreams. Usually they're quite vivid, and they will like affect you vibrationally when you wake up as well. And then, yeah, right now, like the crazy psychic attacks happening just because they want to take us down before we move into this higher vibration. So we're kind of at a place where we're quite vulnerable too at an individual level. I guess the number one thing that I want to say about navigating these things is, okay, you contracted them for a reason. And like, I know that that's like, once again, maybe not the most popular narrative, but I truly believe that all of the attacks, all of the dark experiences I've had have made me so incredibly wise and objective and aware of that side. And I wouldn't have taken them, you know, any of them back. So it's kind of like, don't fight it, but using unconditional love and compassion is basically your greatest tool. So beyond just knowing I created this for a reason, and the reason is actually to learn something from this, beyond that, I would say stepping into that heart space center and stepping into unconditional love, it's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's almost like a burning feeling for them. You know, it's painful for them, for us to step into that love. So when we're scared of them, we feed them with our fear. When we fight them, we feed them with our fighting energy. And that's the polarity. That's the anger. That's the emotion that they're looking for from us. If we step into our unconditional love, they can't handle that. And basically that pushes them off pretty quickly. White light, energies around your own aura, around your home, especially before bed, things like essential oils and even crystals also really help as well with all of that.
Yeah, I love that you bring that up. And, you know, just recently my car was stolen from inside of my garage. And it was just one of those experiences where there was a piece of, you know, going into the experience and having some resistance and judgment around it. But I find like what you're sharing to be so helpful, because it is in the questioning of, okay, what is this here to show me, right? Like, what is the lesson to be learned? You know, how did I contract this that we can really gain from the experience and move forward in a positive way?
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the other examples that I use is if you're stuck in traffic and the guy behind you is texting on his phone while driving, which is too common, and he rear ends you, that's not just his fault. And once again, not the popular belief, but the way that I live my life is every interaction that I have, I contracted, I asked for, I created. And when you really step into that energy and vibration of I created all of this, good, bad, and ugly, it is so damn empowering. And then you learn why you created those ugly things, and it's even more empowering. And you get to transmute things really, really fast rather than being stuck in that victim.
Yeah, one of my favorite topics, transcending the victim-victimizer matrix. Yeah.
Oh my God, totally.
Yeah, and I love that. And I love, because I feel like what you're offering in way of moving beyond and, and transcending and transmuting these attacks and these, in whatever form they come, is really kind of the navigational tool, perhaps, for every interaction, exchanged with any being, right? And sometimes, and this is not going to be a popular thing either when I say it, sometimes it feels like, when you are choosing to, embody and resonate in a higher dimensional framework, so to speak, and then you're immersed in, in a situation or an environment whereby most of the people in that environment, are choosing a real third density type of lifestyle, way of life existence. That can almost feel like the same kind of energy as when you're engaging in, in like with an entity or with a psychic attack, right? And so just because of the level of resistance to change and almost that, that level of separation and combat that's taking place as a result of all that's taken place over the last few years. So, oftentimes that will come through very strongly as well, that, okay, meeting in that neutral place, right? Meeting from that place of holding the unconditional love and compassion and knowing that any other level of participation is really going to just engage more of the same. So I love that you brought that through. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. It's a very intense and polarizing world out there, and I'm so clear about bringing it back to the self and helping people feel more empowered. And I wish more people were teaching that, because there is a lot of resistance and there is a lot of fighting and there is a lot of polarity, even in the spiritual communities. And I can't say that it's disappointing for me, because I don't have expectation on any sort of community, but I also hold like the highest hope that everyone is going to be able to find their own way. And we're all going to come back to that unconditional love. We're all going to come back to that source frequency, because that is the most blissful place to be, without attachment, without expectation that it's always going to be there too, because it's okay to dip into those lower vibrational levels as well. This is what we're here to do, is experience all angles of polarity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's funny. I always hold space of compassion for those, in the spiritual communities that poo-poo on unconditional love and unified consciousness. Because I'm like, well, after you get through all the other layers of, that are taking place in experiences, ultimately, from my vantage point, that's ultimately, where everything, ascends to. So, powerful, simple, so simple and so powerful.
Yeah. And the frequency of hope. I love that you're bringing that through. You have shared with us kind of some of the themes that we've been navigating through 2021, and I'd love to hear. I know that you've recently connected with the Galactic Federation of Light and really kind of tapped into some of the energy and themes of 2022, and love to hear from you some of the things that we'll be maybe navigating through.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's like different layers and different angles to talk about when it comes to 2022. Like there's that kind of mainstream 3D layer of 2022. The information that came back for 2022 was more polarity, even themes of war are really coming up as well, like war in different countries, like kind of more at a political level. I saw a lot of that coming up in 2022. But that's kind of more at that 3D level. So more polarity, more wars, more of that fighting, and then also like more pushback as well from humanity, which I think is a good thing. It depends on how it's being used. Like if everyone who wanted to protest on the street basically started to go within and raise their vibration and do the work instead of protesting on the street and like fighting at a verbal level, but fighting at an individual, like holistic level, we would win the war. I mean, we would completely change the system. But we're going to see that. We're going to see way more protests. We're going to see lots of political stuff. I'm hoping that we do see, there was a little bit of this. It's hard because there's so many different timelines taking place in 2022. And right now with the rapid pace of energy, it's like there's so many different agendas being played out by, say, the elites in society to try and bring more fear, to try and bring more chaos, to try and bring more distraction. And then all of those different agendas are being met with kind of, different agendas by the GFL and how to help humanity at a greater level based on what's happening. So there really is this war that's taking place. And the original timelines that I got back in 2018 was that between 2020 and 2024 is supposed to be the collapse of the old system. And from what I keep hearing from the GFL these days, humanity hasn't hit that breakthrough yet. It's kind of that breaking point. I always say you have to break down to break through. We haven't hit that collectively. Like, there's too many people who are still hanging on to the belief of the old system because they believe that that's what's going to save them. And that's perpetuating the old system. So we're it's almost like there needs to be other things that take place to continue the dissemination of that old system. And so, yeah, so that's kind of what we're going to be facing 2022 as far as at a collective level, at an individual level, especially for this community, especially for people who have really done the work. It's all about freedom. It's all about stepping into your psychic and spiritual abilities. And it's all about like, how can you give back to the planet while giving back to yourself simultaneously? So, and I think a lot of us are already on that path. Actually, right in my last GFL message to humanity, which was just a couple of days ago on the 11th, the message that came through was, if you are thinking about starting your own business, do it. This is really the time. And it's funny, like, I know for myself back in, I think 2011, 2012, and I'm like, I'm going to be a psychic and I'm going to help people with my abilities. It's like everyone I met was a psychic. And I'm like, there are too many psychics out there. But I say it's kind of like shopping for a car. You shop for a car and you're like, oh my God, this car is so popular. I see it everywhere. It's very similar to that, right? Where you're stepping into is what you're going to attract. So you're like, oh, there's everyone and their mother is a life coach. It's like, yeah, but you have a specific niche. Like, you're here for a specific reason. And if life coaching is the door opener for you to help the rest of the planet, then do it, because we have 8 billion people to help heal and navigate and expand and move through this crazy time. So we need as many teachers, we need as many life coaches, we need as many psychics, we need as many people helping other people as possible. But also, if you're not in a place in your own healing journey to be able to support and hold space for others, then just take the time to support and hold space for yourself as well. So we've got this kind of push and pull. It has to be balanced, right? I mean, moving forward, you have to, the give and the take. There's no other way other than it being balanced. So a huge uptick in pretty much a lot of activity for light workers and star seeds and old souls. And that freedom is going to be huge. So freedom in your environment, freedom in your own mind, freedom in your bank account, freedom in your time, freedom with your family, freedom in society. Freedom is huge. And when we get stuck on, I'm not free because of the mandates that the government's putting on me, and I don't blame anyone for thinking that, because that's all we're hearing about. But you're focusing every single day on, I'm not free. So what are you creating for every other aspect of your reality? The lack of freedom. If you're like, oh my God, I was free this morning to choose tea or coffee. I'm so free. Wow, I was free today to choose taking a walk or taking a bath. I'm so free. When we take a look at these small little moments of freedom, we focus on those moments, we send gratitude to that moment, we really amplify that gratitude and that freedom to all the other aspects of our life as well. So there's a lot of lessons that I think that we have to learn as a spiritual soul, like as an old soul, but I also have faith that people are going to be learning these like rapid pace. Like what took me 4 years to go get through is taking people 2 weeks, and it blows my mind. And because we have the energy to support us moving through that stuff. So continued healing, continued inner child work, continued past life and ancestral healing and unpacking, but also the leveling up of our systems as well.
Yeah, perfectly said. I think one thing that was coming through as you're speaking, well, lots of things were that palpable and notable difference of how much the universe and everything is in your favor when you're choosing to be in that place of gratitude and that place of recognition of all that is going well and is going in flow, and versus when we're not, and we're kind of stagnating in those those old patterns of just sort of going with the flow or focusing on sort of the negatives, so to speak. And so there's such a huge, super highway that, to your point, like you can just step into in just such simple little tweaks of your conscious direction. And I feel like that might lead us into something that I noticed that you talk about, which is really exciting. And I've been waiting to chat with someone who's had this experience, is these interesting pockets whereby I'm witnessing time standing still. And then I was receiving these downloads that like, oh yeah, there's a lot of manipulation taking place on, on the higher quantum level, on a higher level. And so when you witness this, it's not to say necessarily that it's, my particular path of service here to go up and, and confront those that are manipulating it. But what they're saying is those who've done their work, right? And those who are in a place of sovereignty and in a greater place of, of holding higher dimensional bandwidths, you have an exponential pocket of opportunity to manifest for the collective, for your, for the all that is, in a very significant way, and not to undermine yourself as the individual when you're taking note, you're noting those pockets. So I wanted to see if you could speak on that a little bit, your experience with that, and also if you have any, additional encouragement for those that are gathered here.
Yeah, fantastic. Time has been so weird. And I think that it really hit the world. Like the illusion of time really hit the world in 2020 when everyone was forced to exit out of their own matrix, exit out of their own 9 to 5. And all of a sudden, time is what you make it. It's funny that you bring this up because just like, I think it was yesterday, I mean, what is time? But it was like this 15-minute period that me and my wife went through, and it literally felt like 45 minutes. And every 2 minutes we would say to each other, oh, it's 10:52 now. Like, oh my God, like, doesn't that feel like that was 15 minutes ago? Like, this is crazy. Like we were just observing this like elongated pocket of time as we're in it, which was so fascinating. So yeah, of course. When you say time is an illusion, it's a really difficult concept to get your mind around. Like I remember first, being told this by an extraterrestrial. It's like, yeah, so time isn't linear. I'm like, what does that even mean? The best way that I can explain it is, in this third dimensional reality, we perceive time as, the past, the present, and then the future. In this kind of linear progression, A, B, C. But really, I experience time. It's not that it doesn't exist at all. You just experience it in a more simultaneous manner when you get to a higher vibration. So instead of A, B, C, it's like A, B, C are stacked, right? So it's past, present, and future. And when you stand in that present moment, when you're in the center of basically the past and the future, you get to kind of reach out your arms and pull information from those alternate timelines. And then, of course, time speeds up, time gets slower. Eventually, when you become very conscious and you're not necessarily expecting anything out of time, you get to really become the master over time. Eventually you'll be, I want this 30 minutes to feel like 3 hours, and you get to do that. But I want to actually take it to like a whole other level because I just feel like I want to. I love the quantum world. I love pushing the boundaries. It's a trip, honestly. Because I'm clairvoyant, I can see quantum mechanics, which makes it much easier for me anyway to understand. Makes it very difficult to explain because a picture is 1,000 words. And sometimes I don't always have the verbiage for it. So I've been doing this thing. I labeled it because that kind of helps me explain things. I labeled it quantum linking. Okay, so you may have heard of quantum looping or quantum leaping into a different timeline, which is cool, but quantum linking is something different. And I really feel called to kind of share this with your audience. So quantum linking is essentially taking something, and the easiest way to put it, because it could be, a variety of different ways, is taking an action and linking a cognitive association to that action. So say, for example, I've got my coffee here. The action would be drinking the coffee. The association would be, maybe an autopilot association as, ooh, this coffee tastes good, or, oh, this coffee is cold. That's just autopilot. What I believe we can do, and I believe everyone can do this, is we can quantum link a new association to the action of drinking coffee or drinking a sip of your water. Every time you take the action of drinking a sip of your water, you are looping in the cognitive association of, this water is healing my body. It's not just hydrating me. It's not just nourishing me. I believe that we could link in these concepts through space and time. So say, for example, in this present moment, I could take 10 minutes to close my eyes, meditate on every single future moment that I ever pick up a water glass and take a sip, which is a lot in this lifetime. And I associate and quantum link that new concept, that new programming essentially, to that action of picking up that glass of water and drinking it. And all of a sudden, it could be 10 years in the future, and you still have that brand new association until you choose to reprogram that association. I believe that right there is truly mastering our matrix. It's truly mastering our reality, and it's truly becoming the programmer of our reality, rather than being that victim, or rather than having reality, play out in front of us. We get to play with reality through concepts like quantum linking. And one more thing about that is, I really one day, I'm 29 now, maybe this is going to happen in the future, but I really want my own laboratory, and I really want to do a series of quantum experiments. And one of the quantum experiments is, what if I were to quantum link the connection or association that this glass of water in particular is going to give me 400 milligrams of zinc or magnesium or what have you, and then testing the body before drinking the water for zinc or magnesium or whatever that vitamin is, drinking the water, and then testing the body again. I truly believe that our belief, our observation, our focus creates a reality. So whether that water has magnesium or zinc or whatever in it or not, if you believe that it does have it in it, I believe it's going to create an effect over our body. And these are the kind of experiments that I would love to work with. One more experiment. I call it the quantum banana. And basically, I've wanted to do this for a while, but I just don't have the right kind of, testing environment, you could say. I would love to take 2 bananas and basically isolate them in 2 different rooms that are completely blank, no other kind of potential variables. The bananas are from the same patch or whatever. And you have banana 1, banana 2, and banana 1, I would love to go into the banana 1 room and speed up time. I don't know how you would do that, right? You think about time speeding up, I don't know what that process would look like. And then banana 2, you slow down time, and you actually measure how the banana decays based on the even projection of perception of time, being in the room with the banana. So that's just a couple of the experiments that I want to dabble with in this lifetime. But yeah, so hopefully that kind of gives a little overview of time and how weird it is and what we could potentially do given time and the power that we have within.
Yeah, I love that. That's really helpful. And I think that, such a powerful tool right now are practical tools, right? And so that's so relatable. And so thank you for bringing that forth.
Yeah.
I'm curious right now, you've shared a lot about sort of the ascension symptoms that are taking place. Is there anything that you're doing that maybe is different, taking care of your physical, mental, spiritual bodies at this time?
Yeah, for sure. I've been super, super called. This is me personally at this time. Ultimately, I recommend that everyone just listen to their own body, because you might need, you know, a gallon of peanut butter one day, you know, and you might need whatever the next day. So it's really, it's individual. But yeah, like right now I am so called to like fast. So I've been doing a lot of intermittent fasting, which I think is so healthy, but then also doing some juice cleanses. I've also been called to zeolite and activated charcoal. Both of these kind of natural compounds allow us to remove heavy metals and toxins in the body. So every ounce of my body is just telling me like clean diet, you know, lots of water, and just cleansing out those heavy metals in the body. And then lots of stretching, lots of also just like relaxing and like tapping on my laptop from bed and like just listening to my body just needs to lay down, you know. So just that's kind of where I've been at. I've really feel like I've been at this place of like just needing to cocoon, just needing to heal, just needing to process, because so much repressed trauma has come up really since September. And I know I'm not alone in this processing right now. So I really recommend clear your mind just as much as you're clearing your body. And intermittent fasting is a really incredible way to do that.
Beautiful. Do you feel like that's, you know, in preparation for, you know, the shifting of our DNA into a more crystalline plasma state? And can you share a little bit about that in your relationship with that and anything that you feel is relevant for the audience?
Yeah, for sure. So I definitely believe that we're shifting into a crystalline state, the 12 helix DNA strand, and really, you know, unlocking that kind of hybrid, you know, interdimensional DNA that we have within us. So yeah, I definitely believe that, you know, releasing heavy metal toxins and other things in the body and, you know, drinking lots of water and intermittent fasting are all really great practices to help to activate your DNA, or to allow these upgrades to come in seamlessly, I think is really important. And then also like energy movement too. So whether that be stretching or running, but like moving your body also moves energy. If you really just want to have a great energy movement practice, it's Qigong or Tai Chi. And that is moving your body while you're moving your energy. So that's beautiful. And yeah, as far as the upgrades, like we're all getting upgraded right now. And that's why we're also all getting challenged with old traumas, dark energies, childhood bullshit, you know, it's all coming up to the surface right now because we're also purging out a lot of the base root chakra, the sacral chakra stuff. And it's funny, so one of these beings who came through the recent GFL meeting, December 11th, was talking about, so she is a hybrid biologist. So specifically, she's like an expert in looking at human beings as hybrids. And she was talking about the Galactic Federation basically deciding to give upgrades to humans from the top down. So from the crown chakra down. That made a lot of sense to me because, of course, these are going to be easier for them to activate with higher vibrations. And you would think that that would activate our DNA really rapidly, which it would. But what was happening was it was taking everyone out of their body and then creating things like autoimmune, you know, diseases and things like that, because they're like, okay, cool, I'm so activated, I'm gone. And then some people who got too activated too quickly from these upgrades in the past 5 to 10 years went through psychosis, kind of went on the other end of like, oh, I'm so out of my body, I can't ground, I can't come back to this reality. So what they've decided is they're now activating our crystalline DNA through the bottom up, so through the base root chakra. And they said that this is a very recent change that they decided to do. I think in the past year, maybe year or two, that they started to do this. Doesn't mean that everyone got activated from the bottom up at the same time. It's kind of like a ripple effect. And basically what they're saying is this is why we've all had to go through this super heavy past life, sexual trauma unpacking from that base root chakra. And they said that it takes a lot longer to activate from the bottom up, but it's a much more kind of sustainable long-term solution to the activations. And I thought that that was really fascinating because I'd never heard that before.
That is, yeah, that's so helpful to know. And a lot of what you're sharing is just so empowering around DNA. And it is such a, relevant topic during these times. You have shared just that our thoughts and our frequency really has the impact and the ability to, make shifts in our DNA. Could you go into a little bit more detail about that?
Absolutely, yeah. So I do believe that our belief, which is essentially our focus, sets the stage for our physical, our mental, our spiritual, our soul levels. So that's really important. So once again, that willingness to change, your behaviors, your actions, your habit patterns, who you are, as long as you're willing to change and you have that openness in you, you're going to be fairly open for DNA upgrades and unlocks. The other thing that you can do as well, if you're looking for this, but I always really kind of put a caution warning on asking for this, just because people are like, oh yeah, I want to be upgraded. Count me in, I'm ready. And then I'm like, ooh, but you really want to think about it. What's going on in your life right now? Are you really healing? Are you looking for a job? You really want to ask for upgrades at the right time in your life. Because when you do ask for things, they do come. And sometimes you're like, whoa, didn't realize that upgrades were so shitty. And sometimes they are. They're not it's endless nights of sleeplessness, right? That's not a fun experience to go through. So you really do want to make sure that you have the space and the time and the energy to experience the unfolding or the unpacking or the upgrading or what have you. So that's important. So you can, when you are ready for it, ask and say, I am ready to be upgraded. I am ready for crystalline upgrades. I'm ready to unlock my DNA. But that I am ready statement is profound, and it will absolutely immediately make shifts in your own life. But just realize that these shifts are usually pretty difficult for a human to go through. It's not all butterflies and rainbows. It is on the other side of it, but not when we're going through it.
I'd like to always add the phrase with grace and ease.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
What do you do to really bring in the childlike frequency of joy, especially during these times?
Yeah, I have so many inner child things that I love bringing through. I would say my favorite is building little structures. I built a little mini greenhouse with paper and little paper plants. I mean, it was really fun. So yeah, anything creative, anything building. I love Lego, definitely an inner child thing. I love painting and art. I love ecstatic dancing, but just solo, so things like that, I really just love skipping around and having fun and just letting that side of me out, because we need more of that. We need more laughter. We need more fun. And I always encourage people to go into their inner child and ask what it needs at this time.
Love that. Who inspires you?
Who inspires me? From a young age, I've been taught not to seek information from outside of me. So I don't really have there's people that I really love and that I really look up to, and they're all, it would be my wife and mostly her and some friends and things like that. But I feel I am a very easily inspired person. I will take a walk and look at a plant and have a moment. I feel every aspect, every element of my reality is inspirational, and in just the silliest ways, which is so beautiful for me, because 10 years ago, I was resisting every aspect of my reality. I was resisting being human. I was resisting having to cook food and eat it and having to interact with society and those kind of things. So nowadays it's beautiful how I get to be in my body and I get to really love this physical experience and get inspired by all aspects of the physical reality as well. So yeah, like I'm inspired daily by probably the simplest of things.
That's so beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
Some questions?
That's a great question. Celeste asked what your suggestions are around stock money, leave it or cash out.
Okay, yeah, great. So my wife is like super techie, super into stocks and the stock market and crypto and NFTs and just this whole world that I don't understand. Here's the information that I've received, and it's the same information I've received for a number of years now, as far as like any and all financial kind of transactions. It's kind of like the rule of like, have your eggs in multiple different baskets, right? Don't put them all in the same basket. So as far as your finances, here's what they've recommended is have your money. So I guess 1/4 of your money in the bank, 1/4 of your money, however much money that is, in cash, 1/4 of your money in precious metals, and then 1/4 of your money in investments or stocks, or also like basically they said like survival or prepping equipment. So I do recommend food and water, like enough food and water for 3 months. So it's like, it's great to have stocks. It's great to hit big and go to the moon and make money on stocks. But it's also important to realize that there is definitely a timeline where we have a whole economic reset. And if that were to be the timeline that we hop into, or if that were to be the future case, then it's hard for me to say that even the money or those numbers that you see in your bank account are going to be there. Who's to say that even that is going to exist afterwards, right? So something that's real wealth is precious metals. And I do recommend, even $5-10, a month into that. It would be really beneficial. So diversifying your assets is really huge. And, every time I go grocery shopping, I usually get an extra 2 or 3 cans or, noodles or whatever, if shit goes down, even in a small condo that we're in here, at least we've got some sort of food and water available to us. So I am a little bit of a prepper at heart, and it feels like the time or the need for doing that is more potent than ever before.
Okay, so you're feeling a fairly weighted timeline potential of this.
Yeah, weighted enough to be like 50-50. 50% it could happen, 50% it's not going to happen. And that is quite a weight if you really think about the enormity of that taking place and the potential impact that could have on the entire planet.
Sure. Yeah, well, we saw what happened with toilet paper during COVID. So if that's anything later.
Exactly.
Okay, well, this is a good reminder. Thank you.
Before we get into last questions, I just want to touch on where people can find you, learn more about your work, and also ask you about the Winter Solstice event that you have coming up on December 21st.
Yeah, for sure. So you can just kind of Google Elizabeth April. You'll see all of my links there. Instagram, YouTube's a really great place for tons of free content. And then I also just recently launched my own membership platform. So that's pretty awesome. It's called the Cosmic Society. You'll find that on my website. And other than that, yeah, this Cosmic Gateway event, I had one last year. It was so freaking epic. I think last year was about 4 hours. This year it's going to be about 4 or 5 hours. The ticket is $22, and with the live ticket, you also get the recording. So I know a lot of people are in different time zones, so it's great to kind of follow up and complete the workbook. So the overall thing for the event, like the intention is let go of 2021, let go of the past, and really get prepared with your intentions, manifestations for 2022. There's going to be a live coaching call where I tap into people's energy and vibration and do readings for people. The GFL is going to come in. We've got a workbook. We're doing psychic activities, so like working on telepathy and all of that great stuff. So I'm super pumped. Like, I really wish it was in person, but I'll take online. But it's, I always love interacting with the community that way and getting people prepared and ready to really move into this new year.
That sounds amazing. Can people go to elizabethapril.com to find out more about that event?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, just look out for the Cosmic Gateway.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this has been absolutely incredible. You are such a gift to humanity, and we are so, so grateful for you joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So much love and gratitude to everyone who joined us this evening. We'll see you again next time.
Thank you.